Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do, build frame rails for this Mustang. So, this is the shenanigans I'm up to right now. So I'm gonna put some frame rails in, which are gonna extend from the front of that existing frame rail on the outside, kind of where that piece of straight edge is. And it's a 3-inch square. Rectangular square tube, and it's going to go all the way from the front of that existing frame rail to right where that says 3x3 ends here, right there. Says it upside down, but you can handle it. And then from there, I'm going to have to take some 1/8 inch plate, 10 gauge steel, and I'm going to have to cut a basically a frame rail that's that same shape as the existing sheet metal is, and that'll go on the bottom of the car. So knowing that the sheet metal has a thickness of 50 thou or so, what I've done is I've taken a washer here. I got it cut close enough, right? There's some small gaps in there, but that washer should span it fine. So if I take that washer and stick a Sharpie through the hole, one of these guys, and I just trace that line there all the way around the corner, a straight line there and a straight line there. So now I have something that is about a 1/2 inch offset. Now if I cut it right there, that won't work, right? Because it's going around the corner. So the distance from the ink mark is at a different angle, right? If it's going down the hill on that end, it's on this angle. If it's on this angle, right? So if I cut it on that line, it won't fit. But what I'm going to do is, knowing that size of that washer, and that I want it to fit on the bottom side of that sheet metal instead of the top side, I can do a little arithmetic. 22mm diameter skateboard bearing, and I put it on the end of my plasma cutter here. And so what that allows me to do is trace around a weird edge. So like for instance, this is I won't be putting a plasma cutter through my granite table, but I can slide that along edges. And as long as I keep it on a little bit of an angle, like that, just a tiny angle, and it rolls nice and easy. And it doesn't stick and slip, right? So the combination of the size of that washer and the size I know that bearing is, and the thickness of the metal from the inside to the outside, I can just take this pattern, which is made out of this whiteboard. It's brown on one side, but it's white on the other, I assure you. So I will trim that up to that line. And then I will use that as a pattern on a 4x8 sheet of 10 gauge steel. And then I'll do the same thing. Like that'll give me one side of it, that'll give me the top side, but then I'll have to do a 3-inch width, right? So I'll do the same thing, except for that washer will be 3.5 inches ish, like this dimension from here to here will be like 3.5 inches. And then I'll have a piece of 3-inch, and then I'll have to make a top and a bottom, and the top and the bottom have to conform to that shape, right? So the sides don't have to be perfect because I'm going to MIG weld it all together anyway, but what I'll be doing, the plan is anyway, we'll see. We'll see how that plan evolves as I keep going, but my plan is to drill some holes in that upper sheet metal and put a 3-inch wide piece of 10 gauge steel up there. Every 3 inches or so, probably put a couple of bolts to hold it together and suck it down to the floor. And if I just start at one end, I'll probably start at that end and then work my way around the corner and up into here where it's a flat area. And then that'll be sucked up to the bottom of the floor. and then I'll put the sides on there, tack it in place, and then pull the whole thing off, weld it, box it, and then I'll have a real frame all the way from the front torque box all the way to the taillight panel. And then once I get that done, well, I'm going to do one side complete first because I don't want to saw this thing into nothing, right? There's not much holding it together. So that floor is the weakest, so I'm going to do that side first. Once I get that side all done, welded in, then I'll take the rest of this floor out on this side anyway. I'm going to leave this in temporarily because it's a nice structure right now, but I can take this side, this floor out, do the frame rail on this side, and then I can start putting the cage in. I could remove the sheet metal, but I want to leave it in because it's kind of in its proper resting place right now, within, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or something. It's fairly close. Definitely close enough to put the roll cage in. So I got some 1 5/8 DOM tubing that I'm going to bend up and start making the cage, and that's going to be a little bit different than normal. Like normally you tie your cage into these torque boxes, but I'm going to tie it in here because this is going to be occupied by not this fuel cell, this fuel cell. So this is the approximate location of the wheel. I don't know if you can see the dental floss there, but it's a lot tighter. And the reason I have to put new frame rails in is because, that there. It's, yeah, that's not going to work out. Unless I run positive camber, which I'm not going to do. You can see I made a little pattern on the plywood here. And the reason I did this was I did some math, and then I didn't trust myself. So, according to my math, it was going to be 11 millimeters. And better than my focus here. I'll rush you to the chase. It says 11.07, 11.00, 10.93. So we're really close to 11 millimeters. Okay, so I trimmed off the excess. You can see it's fairly parallel, but in some spots it wasn't perfect. So I went through with my 11 millimeter washer and I trimmed it to that line. I'm just going to clean that up with a file now, and then that's going to be my pattern to do the top side of the 4 frame rails. Okay, so I did a little test piece here. So I'm using this piece of plywood here as my pattern. And then I got this, a little scorched on the side, but whatever. This is my guide to go around the pattern. So the first cut I did was it's inside, and then I just used the bearing on here to do the second side, because I don't want to, cut 10 feet of frame rail out and have it the wrong size. So looks like it's supposed to be 3" to 980, to 990, to 960. To 950. So I'm gonna have to make this guy a little bit bigger, maybe 100 thousandths bigger, and then I'll have some trimming room and stuff. But honestly, this would totally work. So I wrangled this hunk of metal in, which is about, I don't know, 4 feet by 5 feet, 1/8 inch. Been sitting around for a while, a little bit of surface rust on it, but not to worry. So I got the pattern up there. I made a slightly larger pattern. So Just making sure this is big enough. It looks like it barely covers that edge there. So a lot of this material is going to get thrown away, but or made into smaller pieces. But so the first thing I'm going to do is plasma cut with this big one, and then I'll go back with the skateboard bearing, and then I should have a 3-inch wide section consistent there. And if I did everything right, this should line up with the inside of the rear floor pan. Okay, so there it is in all its glory. Obviously I need 3 more of those, and then the top and the bottom. Okay, so I'm back. So what I've done is I put a string line down the center of the vehicle. Measure twice, line up once. So that's centered between frame rails or the sills. And then my new frame rails, which are going to sit to the outside of those existing frame rails. And the inside is 16¼ from the center line, and the outside is 19.25, so that's between there and there. And then part of the frame rail, the existing frame rail, is out here somewhere. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that there so it kind of holds everything together until I get this one welded in, and then I'll remove that. So these spot welds I drilled out on the top because I gotta have to plug weld the frame rail that's going to go from here to here. I'm going to have to plug weld that in anyway from the top, so those holes will get filled with the plug welds. And then I'll have to drill all these out from the bottom, because this is going to be, this existing sheet metal will be exposed in the trunk. So I want to drill those from the bottom and get the frame rail off afterwards. So, and then all this part here where it's XXXXX, that all goes away. And then the new inner wheel well will sit out here. And I left a little bit that I can either fold over, or, you know, the frame rail is going to end here. So I'll have like 3/4 of an inch to form over it and weld it on the inside if I so desire. But I just wanted to make sure I left enough in here that I have something to weld the inner panel to. So that's the plan. I'm gonna spend a little time in the underside of the car, which is going to be not so fun to film. And I'm gonna do this side first, and then get it all welded in all the way from up there to the trunk. And once that's all welded in, then I'll do the same thing to the other side. And then once that's all welded in, I can start pulling this floor out and putting the roll cage in. And I'm going to leave all this somewhat structure in there while I'm putting the roll cage in. And then once the roll cage is in, the front and the back are tied together, then I can put it back on I can rotate it on the rotisserie and do all the final welds and stuff like that. But I just want it to be stiff enough, sturdy enough to let it tip on its side on the rotisserie, and then I can finish all the other mounts and brackets and for the differential and the suspension arms and yada yada yada. Welcome back. So I made a little bit of progress since yesterday. So as I said I was going to do, I kind of pulled this frame rail out of here. used to go like that. But I didn't pull the whole thing out because the new frame rail is going to live in here, but this one can remain. So all this structure from the torque tube to the sills is all going to still be there. And then when I do put the new frame rail in, then I can take that out. So it's like a little bit of surgery, get the new heart in, and then remove the old one instead of removing it completely, and that's thing flippy flop all over the place. So as you can see, everything's in really nice condition here. Not too much rust. Yeah, it's remarkably thin frame rails. This is like 60 thou wall thickness probably. It's pretty thin. But it's not really a frame, right? It's just a anchor point for the suspension. The body, the unibody is the frame. So the next thing I got to do is get rid of this, which is the structure for the leaf spring mount. I think I'm just going to go in here with a plasma, cut it there and there, because this, as you can see, this thing here shifts over a little bit. So the new frame rail, the outside of it's going to be pretty much butted up against this, and then 3 inches over that way. So it's going to end up right about at this crease, which was not an accident. I've thought about this long and hard, how to make this the most elegant I can without tearing it up so much. So, I dragged some 3-inch square tubing out of the wine cellar. Cut them approximate. Obviously a little long, so I can do some finish work on them, but that's essentially how that's going to go. So this one is 1 inch lower than this one, so this is going to jog up 1 inch to get to there. So those are going to have like a slight taper on them. I don't know, it's like 3 degrees or something. It's not much. And then we'll get that guy there. I have to do some more trimming back here on that guy. That's just kind of rough right now. Get this whole thing out of here. And then we'll get this floor plan, truck pan, I guess, notched out of the way and removed. But that's going to be it. This guy's going to get some rosette welds inside here. And then put the floor on, and then it'll tie to the floor, as well as this will tie to this. And, eventually this guy's going to get gone, but I'm leaving it there right now because that's not going to support the transmission that's going in it, but I want it to hold everything kind of in place right now. Then that's what that all looks like. So I'll pre-weld this piece to the piece that's missing here, to this piece, and then the stuff that goes over the axle. So there'll be one long, 8.5 feet long frame rail for this side, and another one for that side, and we'll stick it in there and we'll seam weld all this stuff up. I'm also going to get rid of this flange. This flange is the only reason it's there is to make it easy for Ford to build the card. Like they can get a pinch welder in here, boop, boop, boop. But my fuel cell is going to go right there, and I don't want it sitting an extra inch up. So I'm gonna chop that off, or fold it over and chop it off. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna get rid of it. So it'll be this height here. So it'll still have the same torque box mount. This is actually some pretty decent structure here. It's, I don't know, 100 thou thick or something. Okay, so I can hold that light somewhere so we can see. So there's my frame connector up front, and one in the rear, obviously just locked up in place with some clamps. So I got the inside of the frame rail out, and that's what the frame rail looks like. I would say that's essentially no rust in there, which is fucking amazing. looks really good. So now I can put the piece that I laser cut out, or plasma cut out, this guy, all the way back to, well, this is outside of where the new frame rail is going to be. The new frame rail is going to be like right about there and this way. So let me show you what I did with the trunk pan. So this is where the new frame rail is going to be, here to here. There's also going to be a cross member going, a 3x3 cross member going across that way. So I just cut the gas tank's going to be in where the back seat used to be. So I'm just going to take this thing, I'll cut it over here as well. And then I'll just bend this up and it'll wrap around the piece of the frame rail. So there'll be like a little cubby from here to about here, and then the full width, which is 32.5 inches. So anyway, I think the next thing I need to do is get my plasma cut thingy out and start mocking it up in place, and then cutting some more sides and yada yada yada. But the plan is coming together. I think this is still, you know, it's not as structural as it was, but I certainly didn't totally compromise the integrity of it for everything to sag. So it's, you know, it's got 8 points of contact, so I think we're fine. I did have to cut this a little bit, but we'll trim that till when we get the frame rail the proper width. We'll trim that and spark that in. Better than new. I'm not sure why I really need this, but I'm sure it keeps the car from doing that. I'll probably just fill it with foam because I don't really need it. All the rest of the stuff's going to be filled with essentially acoustic foam, like inside the frame, the sills and stuff. That's all going to be full. Under the seat pans, that'll be full of foam. So nobody says you can't have a fast car that's quiet too. So kind of cramped quarters here, but a few minutes time have elapsed, and I still need to do a little bit of trimming on it, but got a little gap up here, but I think it's just it needs to slide back a bit. So I'll get to trimming that guy up. I think it needs to slide back. Yeah, there's a little radius back there that isn't allowing it to go back far enough, so I think that's what's stopping it. But yeah, this is looking like kind of what I anticipated it looking like, which is good. So my plan is to make a second one of these, or second, third, and fourth of these, and then I'll get a piece of 3-inch strip, and I'll put that 3-inch strip up here, and I'll pull it down with some screws, and then I'll get my MIG gun in here and tack those two together, and then pull it all back out, and then make it a box, and then close the bottom of the box, and then put it back in. Welcome back to the channel. So I did some plasma cutting. So I got those 4 frame rails and 4 tops and bottoms. Made a bunch of scrappy scrap over there. And I got some on the workbench here. That's the leftover piece. We use that for smaller bits. So I think I'm gonna change this. I was gonna have a 3-inch section here, but there's kind of a part of the rear panel that kind of gets into this. So I think I'm just gonna taper it up like that. So that should be fine. And then yeah, just some fitting and grinding and welding. Welcome back. So I'm back playing on the Mustang frame rail project. So flame cut these out last week. I'm working on other stuff, but basically what my plan is here is I got this thing kind of bent close. And the reason I want it to be close, but I don't need it to be perfect, is because I'm going to start at the back and put some screws to hold it up against the floor, and then I'll just work my way forward. And I have this one like on a little bit tighter bend than it wants to be, because I'll put screws progressively farther here and here and here. So if it's easier for the screw to pull it up against the floor than to push it away. So if I just start from this end and this here, it'll suck it up against the floor everywhere I'm at. And then same thing here, right? Once this is attached to the bottom of the floor, we can bend it up. And then we can go on the inside and tack weld every, inch, something like that, inside here, and that'll hold it into the proper position. And then we can pull the thing out and put the other half on and box it in, and then put the whole works in together. So that's the plan. This is supposed to be a little bit bigger or sharper radius than this piece. That's intentional. I may have to I think this will be okay, but I could bend this a little more. It doesn't take a heck of a lot to bend it. I just been using my hands. It's only an 1/8 inch thick. So I want a little sharper bend right here. Make sure your keys aren't in your pocket when you do that, but it doesn't take a heck of a lot to bend that. So that's all I've been doing. Either that or clamping into the table if I have a bigger bend to do, but relatively easy to bend this thin steel. Once it's boxed together, it'll take an army of fat guys to bend it, but right now, pretty easy. Okay, so a little bit more work done here. So this is the back of the trunk pan. I'm going to remove this hunk of metal right here. The equivalent on the other side is like this here, because the frame rail is going to come all the way to yonder. So, and then this I just sliced. On the other side I just sliced this, bent it up. So kind of close quarters in here. So then I got this piece in. It's just sitting here right now. So that's where it's going to go. You can see this line here is the inside of it. It's kind of contoured to the bottom of the floor, so I'm just going to clamp this down in 367.4 places. And then I'll get the flame cut piece in there and get the MIG welder over here and tack it every, 2 or 3 inches. So I got the top piece of the frame rail in. This guy right here. I drilled and tapped some holes and put some M6s in there just to hold it. We'll plug weld these later, along with more, but that's where the original spot welds were, so I use those as already drilled holes. So this guy here will go like that. So it's all looking pretty good. So now I just got to put that guy in. And then tack it, and then pull it out, and make it into a box, and then put it back in. Sounds easy, right? Yeah, 10 minutes, probably 20 maybe. Okay, so I got the top part of the frame rail in and the outer edge, and I put tacks every, I don't know, a couple 3 inches here and there. 1,000 clamps later. So now I'll pull that thing out, take all the screws and clamps out of it, and then weld it on the bench, and then finish boxing it in, and then reinstall it. Okay, so got the frame rail out, and I went back through and made the tacks a little bit more tacky, less tacky, more structurally. Like this one here, I kind of missed a little bit. But anyway, I've gone through and kind of rejiggered them. One thing that I'm gonna have to go through and fix is some of these are a little bit, I don't know if you can see that, it's about, I don't know, a couple millimeters sometimes. So now that it's tacked a little bit better, I'm gonna go back through and I'll clamp this to the table and put a big bar on it and kind of bend that into submission. I'll probably bend this guy, I know is straight, so I'll bend this guy. So it'll be a little bit hard to clamp the table, but whatever. And then after that's done, I'll weld up this side, and you can see my cut wasn't perfect there, but that'll all fill in with weld. And where it's a little bit proud, I'll grind it here and there. But that's totally good enough for something that nobody's ever going to see. Alright, so as you might have noticed, I TIG welded this because I don't MIG weld very good, mainly, and it makes a nicer product. So still a tiny bit warm. Let's take a peek at it here, close and personal. Yeah, that's not so great, but it's trying to get a lot of penetration on here. So anyway, I'm pretty sure this is not going to break, so it's mainly a stiffening member, not a strengthening member, so I think we're fine and dandy on that. Okay, so this is where we're at. Got the top of the left frame rail all welded, the bottom still a hole in there. So what I've done is I put some Dicom on the edge here. You can see that, but well, certainly you can see the Dicom. And then I took my calipers, old junky pair of 40-year-old calipers, and I scribed a line on there, 3 inches thickness. Did that on both sides. So now I can take a jigsaw or a grinder or whatever, body saw, and make that 3 inches everywhere, and then we'll take one of those pieces of 1/8 inch plate and make it 2 3/4 of an inch, and then it'll fit right in between here. We'll bend it like we did the other one, kind of close. And then we'll weld it, you know, start on one end, probably this end. We'll start welding here and bending it down, 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 down. Just clamp it in place, tack it, clamp it in place, tack it until we get all the way to the end, and then we'll go through and make a nice TIG weld along the whole thing, and then we'll have 1/4 of 1/2 of a frame rail. Okay, so I got this thing cut to 2 3/4 of an inch. And now I just gotta bend this guy up and start tacking it, pushing it, tacking it, pushing it. Got my cheater here, which is just a strap clamp stud. And I'll use that as a spreader because this thing, when I welded this, it kind of pulled in. So I'll just spread it. Tap, tap, tap. You know the deal. First thing you need to do is put this bend in here, which is, I believe, 11 degrees or so. And then I'll have to get this bend in sharper than this, so I can pull it down as I tack it. Pretty close. So I got these all ground. You can see there's a nice chamfer on the top edge of this one and the inside edge of this one. So I can lay a nice fillet in there. So what my plan is just put a tack weld here with the TIG welder. Since this is nice and flush at the end. And then I'm just gonna tap it down, put another tack, tap it down, put another tack, and just keep doing it all the way until I get to the end. So if you try to start on this end and then this end and work to the middle, you're going to end up with a kerfuffle in the middle. So start at one end, get it where it needs to be, whether you have to pry on the inside or whatever, drill a hole in it, pull on it, whatever you have to do to get it in the right spot. Tack it and then keep moving on. And then when you get to the corner, the same thing happens. This thing is a slightly tighter bend than this, so I can just put a clamp on there and clamp it to the position, tack it, and just keep doing that. And then when I get to the outside corner, same thing, I can just bend it around the corner and it'll be super easy. So anyway, I've done this once or twice. Okay, so this is how far I've gotten so far. So I'm just clamping it down, getting it perpendicular, lining it up with a straight edge, and a yo-yo, and I'll just keep going all the way around the corner and up and over that 5-foot ditch. Okay, so takes a little bit of time and effort, patience, but there we have the frame rail in all its glory. I hope I did it right. I think I did. It's got some heft to it now, but that's okay. Gotta have a good solid mounting point for the roll cage to attach to, so I'm still gonna need to fill in this end here. Has to be solid, so I'll have to make a little plate, and then obviously I gotta weld all this stuff in. But I'm gonna fit it into the car first and see what I fucked up. Maybe I have to do some trimming, whatnot, but overall I think it's gonna work pretty good. Okay, so I got that thing mocked up in there. The top is fully welded, but the bottom, which is going to be the more visible one, isn't. So looks to fit pretty good. So you can see this inner structure here that is like the shock mount and stuff. No accident. That lines up with the size of the channel of the frame. So I'll just MIG that. I can fill a pretty big gap with a MIG gun. Just gotta make a bunch of little spot welds. So anyway, this is looking pretty good. Okay, so I got it all mocked up. Full 3-inch square tube all the way to the back. I did some notching down here. There we go. See, I notched this guy here, so this fits all the way. There we go, that's better. Maybe it's better, yeah. So now I'm gonna get all this junk out of here. Tar and stuff, and then this will all get welded. I'll probably extend this out farther because of the way the under tray attaches and stuff, but then we got a weld there and there. And there. And then I'll have to obviously rosette weld all this in. But this is all perpendicular and straight position I want it to be in, so measure 15 times, weld once, something something. Anyway, I think I'm going to pull this all back out, weld this piece to this piece, and then hopefully I can still get it back in, and then I'll do all the rosette welding and underneath welding, and then I'll weld this piece in. I got to clean all the junk off of this, and I'm going to put some rosette welds inside here. I'll drill holes in this guy so I can get in there, and we'll rosette weld the side of this to this, and then I'll put a seam on the bottom, and then once that's all in, then I can have access to this, so I can TIG weld that all in situ, because it's going to move around a little bit, sure. Hopefully like a little bit is like a 1/2 millimeter, but anyway, that's where we're at. So, gotten a little bit farther along on this frame rail. Still a bit warm because I just finished welding. I think I'm going to put a doubler plate in here in something stiffer than Sharpie, but this has been installed 15, 20 times now, so I know it fits. And I got some holes drilled for the rosette welds. So, and then I got this piece tidied in there, and then that piece that bridges them. So I'm going to make sure I have my ducts all in a row before I weld all this in. The other side I kind of sanded the welds down so it's nice smooth-ish. So I'm going to do the same thing to this side because this one's going to be exposed. I mean, you're laying on your back. Anybody I run over, it'll be exposed. So I'm just going to do a little cleanup on that. And then put a piece on the back here, which I'm going to put some rosette welds to the back. I guess, I'm not sure what this is called. Rear pan, something, something. This piece right here. Which is, yeah, I guess part of the trunk pan. I don't know. Okay, so I've given it a little bit of a rub down, I guess. So this is the top side. Doesn't look as good as the bottom side, but it looks fine. Looks legit. Once it gets a coat of paint and primer on it, maybe in the other order. So yeah, this thing's ready to go in now. I scuffed it down with that guy. Cheapo Harbor Freight special, but it actually works pretty good. And I'm gonna clean it off with some acetone and put a coat of epoxy, or not epoxy primer, but yeah, this stuff. Weld through primer. Professional. That's how you know I'm professional. Just read the can. Alright, so there it is. Looks like a legitimate frame rail. To me anyway. What do I know? I'm going to weigh it in a couple minutes here. Okay, so there's all the frame rail bits. 45 pounds worth. If I did my math right, that means 90 pounds for both sides. Okay, so a little more progress on the left side frame rail. It's all cleaned up and the mating surfaces are cleaned up. I've drilled rosette weld holes here and here. As well as all these guys all the way back to the trunk. Show you how this guy fits down here. This is all cleaned up and I'll give it another coat before I weld it, but I got some weld through primer on that. So go under here and see if we can focus on anything good. So yeah, I'll have to fill that in with some MIG in there. And the floor is nice and tight. And then this will have rosette welds back here going into this back plate. So it didn't turn out too bad. I think I'm just going to get rid of this whole thing once it's welded in. Once it's all attached, I'm just going to get rid of this entire rail. I was contemplating it, but I think that's my decision. I did have to do a little bit of hammer and dolly work, like in here. Because there's like a crease right there. I don't know if you can see it on this side, but there's like a crease right there, and the radius didn't quite line up, so I had to do a little hammer and dolly work. No big deal, not much. That's why I chose this position for the rail. The seat pan kind of hugs right in there. So it would have been a bunch of chop into the seat pan that I didn't really want to do, and it's got plenty of clearance to the tire, so I'm gaining, I don't know, 4 inches or more in some spots. So that should be sufficiente. Anyway, next time you see this, it'll be spark welded in. These are the roadset welds on the rear going to that new frame rail here. I'm going to weld in there. If you haven't used the MIG welder in a while, before you start welding, you should run some wire out of there. And what that'll do is that'll get the CO2 that migrated while you weren't playing with it into the end of the tip, and you won't get a really shitty weld for the first few seconds of welding. So okay, so this is what I got. I don't know, 10-15% of the rosette welds done. They should look like that. Come on, baby, focus. But some of them don't, because I'm not a professional welder. But yeah, should look like that. Should look like that one. But I will be TIGging the rest of these. I'm just getting it to hold into place. So this is plenty strong. I got all these welds here. Not all of them, but some of them. So this is well and truly supportive, but I'll come back with a TIG welder and make them pretty and tidy, and then dress these all up, make them all look, you know, pretty. Cool. This is a milestone. I mean, I'm never done, of course. I'm always partially done, but that's what it takes to see the process, right? You can't look at the pie and understand how you make it unless you see the dough getting spread out and whatnot. Thanks for watching. If you like this content and want more, subscribe, like, and share.